my name is Tina and welcome to my Genshin channel. At this point this is a reoccurring intro, but sorry about my voice, I'm sick for like a month now. I just cannot wait to recover because they had an incredible Lunar 3 special program today. In this video I wanna only focus on lore and mainly the trailer we got, but don't worry because sometime next week I also wanna have another video about everything else Lunar 3. With that being said, jumping right into the trailer, we hear about the Moon Prayer Night. This is something I actually talked about in my last video, since we kind of expected the festival to happen. We've seen the little moon papers that resemble tanzakus, where people write wishes on, even on the splash art. The only question I have is, why is there phlogiston engravings on them? The engravings and the moon's connection is actually not that weird. When we discovered the interstice of the nearing moon, we were also greeted by the ancient dragon dialogue, and the meaning of that place is literally the small gap when the moon is the closest. It was Nibelung who made the moons too, so it all makes sense in itself. However, I'm just wondering why the little wishing papers are addressed to the dragons or potentially made by ancient technology somehow. Notcry has its own script, so if the kids wrote these wishes like during the real world Tanabata festival, then I would assume it would be in that. I just wanted to highlight it because it shows that in some way we might learn some dragon lore very soon. But nonetheless, we know ever since Act 1 from Lauma that the Moon Prayer Night is when the moon is closest to Tivat. Not the first moon on the full sky, we know the real frost moon is the source of Kuvaki, and we know that Columbino is preparing to go home to the real frost moon on this night when it's closest and the Kuvaki is the strongest. I just want to say first of all, I don't think she would just move to the moon. We have the Columbina quest still planned out for Lunar 3, so we'll probably be visiting her here in Tivat. And while later in the trailer she says that the moon is calling her, at the very end Alice calls out that whatever method she knows of returning to the moon might not be working anymore, so I guess she will attempt to return, but it won't work out. As for what is the method, my first guess is, of course, moon gates. She already opened one, presumably to the frost moon. However, that required the work of every single person, including Dane's and Durin's abyssal power, so it might be too much for now. I don't really get the timing of this festival either, because as I said, Lunar 3 still has an entire Columbina weekly lineup, so she's likely gonna only go to the moon and maybe become playable right after in Luna 4. And there is a little hint for that. Just before Luna 4's speculated release, we will get a web event called Memories of the Moon, likely centered around Columbina gearing up to her actual travel. I think the most we get this time around is just more info on her birth, maybe Memories of the Moon as I mentioned, and potentially her real name, but more about that later. During the Moon Prayer Night, there is another phenomenon that appears, it seems like. Loma theorizes that it might be because the real moon is closer to Tivat. However, we see Alice debunking that, saying that the amount is negligible even this close, and the bigger issue is that the unstable fall sky itself, the issue being called Trilunar Syzygy. Now this is interesting, since in English we did hear about Syzygy before, it's the day when the abyss resets. However, that's simply a term for celestial bodies lining up. Trilunar Syzygy in this sense is pretty clearly meaning 3 moons lining up, but I want to mention, in Chinese and Japanese, this is called a little differently, not referencing the spiral abyss at all. It's more like all 3 moons appearing, showing themselves. Given the fact Syzygy often causes eclipses in the real world, I can see the Trilunar Syzygy being exactly like the logo for the Song of the Waking Moon, all 3 blocking each other out. However, there is only the frost moon still remaining intact, and even later in the trailer we get some shots of a weird halo on the first moon among all the other drones, or not sure what the other lights are supposed to be. So not clear to me what Syzygy refers to here, but I'm always all ears when it comes to full sky lore. During Moon Prayer Night, we should also be getting some fun activities, new decorations across Notcry, and even candy that I talked about how it seems like Durin really liked them, and Columbina even had quite a lot on the splash art. But with all that being said, we didn't really hear anything about the Moon Prayer Night as an event, so I think in reality, while the story will cover this festival, it won't be an event, it would just be part of the Archon quest, which also makes a lot of sense, since it should be the last moment before Columbina hops onto the moon, so it would be weird to lock this behind limited time, but I'm not quite sure how it would be handled in regards of the different locations. I just hope they won't be only for the duration of the Archon quest. The festival is a big part of the story itself, so if someone were to play this quest in a few months, they should be able to experience the atmosphere. I just have no idea how they would do it, but as soon as the patch is out, I will for sure make a ton of pictures and videos because the festival looks gorgeous. Moving on with the trailer, the next part we need to talk about is Durin and the witches. I have to remind you that alongside the Archon quest and the witches that are trying to fix the borders, this time around, we will also get a dedicated story quest for Durin, the first time since Notcry was released. His story will likely be centered in Mondstadt, as we can see from the dialogues involving Jean, Lisa and even Khaenri'ah, and it will be all about a book left for Durin by his late mother, the witch Anten's daughter. Now, I have several questions about that. First of all, who is saying the line, "I have a message to deliver" on Master Rindotir's behalf? I talked about this before. The Japanese trailers always have a cast list for more important characters, and for the time this guy speaks, the character named Sebas is listed, like Sebastian. This guy has to be important enough to get a full-on credit in this list. And later, Rindotir herself will speak too, saying that "Child of M, prove yourself to me," so it's possible she will be part of the Durin story quest and not the Archon quest, but still, I would imagine as a shade, she will have something to do about Tibet's borders. And pin that in your memory, because we will come back to this very soon. This video, however, is not focusing on the new characters. As you could have noticed, I skipped over Yahoda already, even though I love her and will see her for sure. But I'm planning to release another video later where I will talk more about everything else, so we'll leave Durin's part for that too. We have to keep going because the next few frames are absolute insanity in the trailer. Mona standing right in front of Khaenri'ah's gate. This is a place that has been in the game for quite a while now, called Gate of Everlasting Morning under Sumeru. Mona also confirms in Japanese something we all knew. I'm pretty sure it was also confirmed before, but just in case, she says explicitly that Khaenri'ah is an ancient underground civilization, and that is something we've heard about even in Notcry and the whole Mad Monk storyline, how people started turning into villagers as soon as they stepped on the surface. This is also interesting because the whole concept of what's up and what's down has been left vague in so many instances. Among many things, just Alice mentioning again how beyond the full sky there is the abyss everywhere, kinda implying that this destructive power, Honkai as it's called in other games, have eaten up everything except for Tibet. There is also Ad Astra Abyssoske, the famous line we hear every day, meaning to the stars and to the abyss. Obviously there is also the Spiral Abyss, where while we go deeper into the abyss, it feels like we are going up, eventually even reaching the moon. It was also said to be a massive underground city constructed by an ancient civilization long gone, like referring to Khaenri'ah, since they and the Abyss Order are the ones using the Abyss script, which is also on the treasure chest in Tibet. So you get my point. I don't really have answers for any of that. I just wanted to mention it because this is something in the game ever since 1.0 and haven't really been touched on. And just before I talk about Sucrose's line, you might have noticed we've seen Mona, now Sucrose, Venti after. These will all be a part of a new character group. You know how Notcry characters have moon sign and using two on your team unlocks stronger skills? Same goes for this new squad who has the connection to the witches called the Hexerei. This is once again a lore video, so I won't go through all of their new abilities, but they look pretty cool and there will be stories around them. For example, how Venti will visit Isterak's secret little island to unlock this. Long has been theorized that Venti is way more powerful than he presented himself for the first time. Ever since, you know, Archon's powers comes from their believers, and Barbatos is obviously the Archon with the most followers. I love that this little lore nugget will finally have a gameplay effect too, and he will even get a new faster weapon, so Venti is eating good dispatch. So at this point we have the Archon quest of Columbina's return to the moon, the festival, and the weak borders, which seemingly also involve Albedo, Durin and Wanderer. But besides that, we also have Durin's quest with Anna's daughter's book, also involving other witches, including Rindotir possibly. And then we also have all the stories around the Hexerei and the task each of them will need to complete. Matching the Sinstera quest is even harder than usual, like what's Mona doing at Khaenri'ah, and assuming Barbalot is involved too, just why? Rindotir looking forward to what questions will someone bring up the next meeting. The scene made it seem like she's talking to Venti, but I mean, she's a witch, could be talking to another witch about the next tea party. She's also a shade, so could be talking to anyone, including Ystra, about the next Shade meeting. However, above everything else, if we are at the Shade meetings, I really want to talk about the one line. I'm so happy about it. The limits and the laws of this world are changing due to an unknown factor. In both Chinese and Japanese, this sounded a little different, explicitly saying that the law's limits are changing, but this is extremely hype for a lot of reasons. First of all, the laws. This is the same word in all languages as the loading screen tip saying Tibet has its own laws. Very vague and strange text ever since 1.0, but we do get confirmation that this is changing. At least its limits are changing. And what might be the reason for that are the shades. Now there is also limits. Limit is even in quoting marks here, the same limit as the god's limit, at least in Japanese and English. And while the shades didn't mention laws when talking about intervening, they said rules, a different word in all languages, which comes up a little later in the trailer when Barbara talking about defying the rules of Tibet. I have a feeling the shade storyline will finally be used in-game too, though it's not clear which quest it would be in exactly. Still, it feels like their inability to really intervene, or maybe their interaction in itself is what causing the issues with the border. And just remember, the shade responsible for the border is still missing, so that could potentially be what the others were talking about, like taking over Asmodai's job, or giving more of Istarok's power to 20, because it's no secret those two are somehow connected. But as Durin is contemplating his task and what if he fails, likely in connection to his story quest, the next frame prints a very different picture, now likely from the Archon quest. We see some ancient scenery there, but the people present don't really have Khaenri'ah clothing, which can only mean one thing. They are from Hyperborea, the ancestors of the Frost Moon Science. I talked about this before as well, the name of Act 5 being Nocturne of the Far North, definitely referring to Hyperborea, and there's a little reference to the lore bomb book called Hymns of the Far North that I made a whole video about. We don't really see who's talking here, they're not even really credited, unless it's Sebas and just talking again, but more likely these voices will just be late Hyperboreans, seemingly recreating the events of waiting for a new moon goddess to be born. And on that note, the entire Hyperborea questline, as well as the entire Reed Miller questline, just got a lot more interesting with the new 4-star lore bomb catalyst in Luna 2, connecting everything together. But if I included all of that in this video, it would be like an hour long, so just keep an eye on for my Reed Miller video sometime in the future. But staying on topic and how we are able to see Hyperboreans, people who died out many centuries ago, it's because they are phantoms. These phantoms have been popping up in Outcry, as I mentioned at the beginning, due to Trilunar Syzygy. This causes all kinds of ancient structures to appear again, potentially late people as well, like the Hyperboreans. And of course, our good old spaceship, which is a lot bigger than I first thought. I'm not sure if we would be getting more info on what the hell happened during our arrival. I feel like they will just keep teasing us. But I must say, if they want to give us some big lore bomb, just dump us with information, this is the perfect time. Nicole will appear dispatch, talking directly into our brains as per usual, and she even says we are on a crossroad of our fates, fate which is being controlled by Celestia through various methods, including Irminsul. And as we know, Nicole is most likely either immune to the Irminsul changes, or at least can feel when it has been changed. We know that since back at the Sumeru questline, when Scaramouche deleted himself from the Irminsul. And talking about our head guy, he will also make a small appearance in the trailer, expressing his gratitude to Sandrona and Arlecchino. They obviously have no idea who is Scaramouche, but I can imagine our boy was looking for some Dottora information, and both Arlecchino and Sandrona hating him, they were more than happy providing that. Nonetheless, it's still fun seeing these colleagues meeting each other, and really the only thing I wonder about is just how many people know about Scaramouche besides us. Will Nicole, for example, have lines about him? Would she have lines about Ruka Devata? Or Alice? She has some immunity as well. She even voiced the Wanderer's collected miscellany, rest in peace, instead of Dunslave. I feel like there is still a lot of possibilities about them, so we'll leave all those theories for later when we get closer to playable witches. As for this video though, I have to end it. I wanted to solely focus on lore, because even with that, it ended up being incredibly long. If I missed something or you're curious about anything mentioned in the special program, just make sure to write me a comment. But also as a reminder, I will have another video sometime next week, just focusing on the new characters and the new events coming in Luna 3. I am really not sure if I can make a Millie Astra Monday video next week. My voice is doing incredibly bad and it was pure pain to get through this video as well. What you should expect though is, as per usual, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, then make sure to subscribe. I was Trilunar Genshin channel, and see you in the next one. Bye bye!